Hello! This video was made to present some queer Mexican projects throughout history. I hope you enjoy. The first ever queer character introduced in Mexican cinema is the House of the Ogre, also known as La Casa del Ogro. Made in 1938, this movie features the first ever queer character in Mexican cinema. His name is Don Pedrito, also known as Doña Pedrita. Directed by Fernando Fuentes, The House of the Ogre was known for its deviation from the common trend of displaying Mexican Revolution information. During the movie, the audience meets this character, who has a big mustache but acts in a feminine manner. His appearance is impeccable, and his behavior is deemed as womanly. This became a cult classic and a huge staple for Mexican cinema representing sexual diversity. The first lesbian movie ever made in Mexican cinema was Muchachas en Uniforme, also known as Women in Uniform. It was a Mexican remake of the widely recognized German film Mädchen in Uniform. The success of the replica was short-lived when it first streamed in theaters, as it was removed and entirely censored 2 weeks after its release. A prominent occurrence in the film consists of no men appearing on the screen. They are either featured in voiceover format or through shadows. This illustrates an enclosed and strictly feminine space. The filmmakers also changed the film's location from a boarding school to a Catholic convent, run by a harsh mother superior who believes in punishment and discipline. Manuela, who although shares the name of the German protagonist, is not an aristocrat like her, but a poor orphan among wealthy girls. This adds to the theme of social isolation and reinforces the misfortune at the end of the film, which also changes as the character dies instead of being saved. The most famous queer film in Mexican cinema would probably be And Your Mom Too, also known as Y Tu Mamá También. This was the first big box office queer film in Mexico to win several awards and become an international success. The story revolves around a love triangle involving the upper-class teenager, Tenoch, his humbler best friend, Julio, and a Spanish visitor, Luisa. But the film's larger impact resides in the sexual openness it depicted, resulting in the most restrictive rating from the Mexican government. And you might question why? Well, it challenges traditional masculinity in a culture where machismo, or patriarchal values, are heavily ingrained, and its precise treatment of class issues in a nation of inequalities. Alfonso Cuarón, the director of the film, explains he wanted the sex scenes to get a point across about these characters, like class, and the conceptions of masculinity they have. A Place Without Limits, released in 1977, also known as Un Lugar Sin Límites, a film by Arturo Ripstein, presents the first ever gay kiss in Mexican media. It is a story full of taboo, humanity, and criticism of the discrimination of homosexuality. It tells the events of the life of Manuela, a transvestite who lives with her daughter, La Japonesita, translated in English to the Japanese girl, in a brothel in a small Mexican town. The kiss between Pancho and Manuela becomes a tragic story, tackling discrimination, segregation, and survival in poverty. In other words, it is a film that does not have a happy ending. The director describes it as a feel-bad type of movie, alerting the audience of its hard-headed content. In 2014, a queer episode was finally released in a new media format through a TV show. The story shows the harassment that a gay teenager suffers from his classmates at a male school. The character is named Sergio, and he gets beaten by his classmates and is also targeted outside school. Sergio's father is ashamed of him, and his own brother also rejects him. The only one who consoles him is his mother. Things change for Sergio when a new student named Tomás joins the class, who doesn't care that Sergio is gay and loves him just the way he is. This episode reflects an important message for younger kids growing up in Mexico who otherwise believe being queer is wrong. The platform in which it is shown also reflects a growing acceptance of queerness, as Mexican cable is geared toward older audiences. This creates awareness and informs older generations about inclusivity and different sexuality spectrums in younger generations. Dream in Another Language, also known as Sueño en Otro Idioma, is a Mexican drama and romance film directed by Ernesto Contreras. It was released in 2017 and filmed in locations such as Los Tuxtlas Biosphere Reserve and Roca Partida Beach in Veracruz. The film tells the story of Martín, a young linguist who moves to a town in the state of Veracruz to interview the last two speakers of the indigenous language, Sicril. Martín wants to make sure it doesn't die. However, he realizes that Isauro and Evaristo, the speakers of the language, quarreled 50 years ago and no longer spoke to each other. Martín must discover, with the help of Lluvia, Evaristo's granddaughter, the cause of said fight, without imagining that the main reason was the romance that existed between them. The Sicril language was created for this movie because the screenwriter and director did not want to usurp real indigenous languages. To do this, the film team relied on a professional linguist who helped them create a totally new language. The film illustrates the crisis of indigenous languages, some of which are doomed to disappear due to the lack of speakers among the new generations, which results in loss of concrete and unique ways of making sense of the world. Dream in Another Language is not only a pioneering film in addressing the problems of the disappearance of languages in Mexico, it also delves into taboo topics. The most controversial queer film in Mexico would most likely be Dance of the 41, also known as Baile de 41. This movie is a Netflix original from 2020. It is a fictionalized retelling of a major political scandal that has had a long-lasting impact on the country's culture and depictions of the LGBTQ community. This movie makes reference to the night of November 17 of 1901, when police raided a private home in Mexico City. The official report was that they found 41 prominent men dancing together, half of whom were dressed as women. But a scandal ensued when initial reports placed a 42nd man in attendance, and the story spread that it was De la Torre, the president's son-in-law, marking the first time homosexuality was openly discussed in the Mexican media. In an interview, Herrera, the main actor, questions what would have happened if Ignacio de la Torre was not discovered as a gay man. He probably would have been one of the most important Mexican figures from our history, but he was taken away from that because he was gay. Herrera finally comments it is his hope that there will be an increase in diverse and respectful representation of more LGBTQ stories, and Latino ones as well. And with that, I hope the same for future Mexican queer films.